Group, with a location in West Bay and professional pharmacy at CTMH Doctors Hospital. The Cayman Pharmacy Group has a location for you just around the corner. Seaboard Marine, with over 35 shipping ports, find your shipping solution by calling 949-4977 or visit seaboardmarine.com for competitive rates. Rotary Central, for more than 110 years, Rotary members have used their passion, energy, and intelligence to take action on sustainable projects. Fidelity Bank, for all your banking needs, visit fidelitygroup.com. Fidelity, we're good for you. And Roper's Janitorial, complete janitorial service for commercial, industrial, and residential. They get the job done right every time.
This is For the Record with Orrett Connor.
Coming to you live from Radio Cayman Studio.
For the record.
For the record. For the record. Hear from your government officials, independents, and the opposition on issues that matter to you. For the record. Engage in an open dialogue between residents and lawmakers.
For the record.
For the record. For the record. Informative, impartial, insightful.
This is your talk show.
1-800-534-8255. Your calls, your input. This is For the Record. And now, your host, Orrett Connor.
Good morning and welcome to For the Record. Today is Wednesday, the 10th day of July 2019. I trust that everyone had an enjoyable evening. Those of you in the eastern districts, I know you must feel pretty happy. Last night we had, yesterday evening, we had a nice shower. The rain actually stayed over us for a while rather than just going through and ending up in West Bay and in Georgetown. So we had a nice shower. I'm sure that your plants, your fruit trees and everything, they're all smiling and happy to get some of that precipitation as well. For those of you who are on the roads of the Cayman Islands this morning, we urge you to be extremely cautious, ensure that you obey the rules of the road, and remember that the life you save may simply be your own. Folks, I want to thank you for allowing Radio Cayman and, by extension, For the Record, into your homes, into your vehicles, as you traverse the busy roads of the Cayman Islands, into your places of work, whether it be an office cubicle or if you're working in the outdoors. As you know, For the Record is a show produced by the staff and management of Radio Cayman, and it is geared towards keeping you abreast of issues as they arise and play out on the local, regional, and international scene. I am your host, Orrett Connor, and you're welcome to join me every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 7:30 a.m. until 10 a.m. The phone lines are always open. There's always someone there waiting to take your calls. 9 times out of 10, it's going to be that beautiful radio voice of Miss Susan Watson, who has a very, very inspiring program before For the Record comes on in the morning as well, and I know lots of you enjoy that also. You can call us on a toll-free number provided courtesy of Flo. That toll-free number is 1-800-534-8255. You can also call us on 949-8037 and 949-6990. If you don't like to talk on the telephone, email us at fortherecord. That is one word, fortherecord at candw.ky. WhatsApp us on 925-3261, where you can leave us a text message or send us a voice note, contents of which will be played during the course of the show. And you can follow us on YouTube simply by subscribing to Radio Cayman live stream. It is my pleasure to have in the studio with me this morning none other than the Supervisor of Elections, Mr. Wesley Howell. He's going to be with us until 8 o'clock this morning, maybe if you can stretch it, maybe a little while after the 8 o'clock news as well. But he's here to give us an update on the verification process that is taking place with the signatures on the petition that was circulated in relation to the port referendum. Mr. Howell, good morning, sir. Welcome back to For the Record.
Good morning, Mr. Connor. Thank you for having me. Good to be here this morning.
I see yesterday as well where several press releases were issued updating the public as well. I just want to also say to listeners, if you have any questions in relation to this verification process, you may want we'll have the phone lines open where you can ask questions of the verification process from Mr. Howell as well. Just reminding you that he's only going to be on here for a total of maybe half an hour, 45 minutes the most. So we can just get right into the meat of the issue, Mr. Howell.
Thank you, Mr.
First of
Connor.
all, if you could update our audience in relation to the number of signatures that you have to verify.
So as of Monday evening, when we did our tallying for the folks that have reported in from the door-to-door, we were up to 1,503 in relation to forms received. About half of those came in through our office, persons coming in to verify in person, and the other half were the persons that we had going door-to-door, starting week before last in East End, Northside, and Cayman Little Cayman, and then last weekend in Town and West Bay. So it's been a tremendous effort to add, sort of 800 forms received within, 1 weekend of solid work. Also bolstered by the supermarket booth that we have as well. So last Saturday we were at Republics and Countryside. This Saturday coming we'll be at the Strand and Countryside again, and also at the elections office on Saturday, 10 to 3 p.m. But yeah, very fantastic effort. My team are working really hard in relation to getting this done. The task that we set for them was to get at least half of their assigned forms completed within the first week. So we're pushing to get this done as quickly as we can.
Okay. What type of feedback are you getting from the public in your interactions with them?
The vast majority of individuals are understanding that some form of verification has to happen. They willingly come in and verify. Some persons are waiting for us when we get to their door.
Wow.
Persons are coming out to the supermarkets knowing that we're going to be there, so they're ready to get their verification done. A few persons are still a bit iffy about the process, but when we explain that it's a process that we're going through, we're verifying that they are who they say they are and they've signed this particular petition. The vast majority are quite accommodating.
Excellent. I see here also where there's a web ticker that has been launched. Can you explain to our audience what that's all about?
So the web ticker, and I was thinking about it before I came on this morning, is actually counting down the number of forms received in comparison to what was submitted by the CPR group in their first submission. Now, the reason I was thinking about it this morning is because the CPR group is still continuing to receive signatures while we're going through this process. So we may actually evolve that ticker to be forms received in relation to the, at least from the percentage, in relation to the number submitted, and change that towards the 25% target that's within the Section 70 of the Constitution, because that number won't change dramatically now because our next voters list isn't out until the 1st of October. So the percentage might actually be more meaningful if it's reflecting or journey towards the 25% rather than the journey unsubmitted. But it is a live update as to where we are. We aim to update it twice a week, sort of midweek, and then on a Monday when we get our people in after their weekend work.
Right.
So it's not quite daily, but we'll have regular updates on there. And there is a little one column that has the date and time of the last update, so that folks will know how relevant, how recent the update was.
Now, in terms of the process, and this press release here, it talks about the fact that verifiers will visit assigned addresses Monday to Sunday between the hours of 9 a.m. To 8 p.m.
Yes. So most visits happen after 5. In some cases, individuals who are familiar with the persons in their assigned area would know that, all right, Mr. Connor comes to work early, but he's there in early afternoons. So they would adjust their times based on that. Some people work at night, and we meet them in the mornings. Persons who knock on doors a few times, so after like the third time, we'll leave a calling card. So it has their name, telephone number of the verifier or our staff member, that they can give us a call back or give them a call back and arrange a time that they can meet. We also check in with neighbors to see if persons are away when they're expected back, so we know when to circle back with them.
And sorry, do you have those forms that were completed? Do you have contact numbers for persons as well, so that they can be contacted in advance to set up, arrange a suitable time to meet with them as well?
Absolutely. So we were the field supervisors are actually the registering officers who have access to our internal database with email addresses and those. So if the first contact isn't successful based on the address, then they go back and the registering officers. Sometimes the phone numbers are out of date, but they know who the mother is, who a brother or sister. They can get a hold of them and then try to track the person down that way. So the registering officers have been really fantastic and making that happen in relation to finding individuals.
Okay. And what the within the verification process, what are the questions or what are the issues that the petitioners are being asked to verify?
So when we go to a home, we have a form that has the voter's name, their voter ID number, and their address and the electoral district. The form then simply says, you, the person named in this electoral district, hereby certify that you signed, and we actually copied the wording from the CPR referendum, a petition with this wording, and a signature and a date that's verified by one of our persons. They ask for an ID, and then we're out of there. So it really is a couple of minutes. If folks want to read in detail what's on the form, folks who have sort of, understand the wording of the form, 30 seconds and we're gone. So we know who we're looking for when we get there, because we've pre-populated those forms, and then we're off to the races in relation to the verification. So it's relatively painless.
Good. Now, for those who have questioned the need to verify signatures, at the same time the balance is there, what would be the downside if you didn't verify the signatures and then later on it was discovered that signatures were either fraudulent or whatever? We know, based on what the people who were circulating the petition, the pains and the extra care that they exercised in ensuring that a person was registered and that that individual signing the petition was in fact the registered elector. But what could have been the downside?
So I can share this. Yesterday at lunch, I ran into a friend of my father, so a little gentleman, and he said to me, I'm not sure why your team is doing this verification process, because when I signed up at the supermarket, I intended to sign that day, so I walked with my voter ID card. The person who took my information looked at my card and ensured that it was my name, and I signed it in their presence. So I said, and for the vast majority of cases, the signing of the petition went like that. But I also shared with him that we have one individual, and I'm using one as an example. We have a few that we're looking into, but this one in particular is an accountant, and he has vehemently denied that he signed that petition. So he's offered to come into the elections office to view a redacted page with just his information on it, to determine what happened there, if it was somebody with a similar name or what. So at this point, we're saying that there's a small amount, but there's enough that it would create enough doubt that the 25% was met if enough of those came forward in relation to that. So again, a professional person, somebody that I would assume would remember if he signed
it, yes.
Saying, no, not me, even though that address that's on your sheet, which is on the signature pad, is mine. That wasn't me. I didn't do that. So not sure what happened there. We're still looking into those. We've been asked to report on the number of persons who have declined to sign at this point. And for us, we haven't gotten to that point yet, because the initial refusal to sign comes for a variety of reasons. Those are all being bounced up to the field supervisors and the registering officers, and we're looking into each one. So before we actually completely write them off as not being able to sign for whatever reason, we want to make sure that all our checks and balances actually happen.
Okay, we're going to take a commercial break. We're talking with Supervisor of Elections, Mr. Wesley Howell. We're talking about the verification process and the signatures for the port petition. When we return, we're going to ask Mr. Howell to lead us through the process, how it started in relation to the verification, whose decision it was that the verification and the actual role that the elections office has played and will play in the process as well. So please stay tuned for the record. We'll be back shortly.
The Cayman Islands boasts of a long, colorful, and rich history. In tribute to our roots, Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands, is pleased to bring you the Historical Vignette Series, sponsored by Cayman National Bank. Visit Cayman National Bank today for all of your financial needs. The Cayman Islands, He hath founded it upon the seas.
Anton Bancroft Bawden. Anton Bawden came of age at a time when educational opportunities in the Cayman Islands were very limited, and he made the best of what they were. In 1943, he left Cayman to seek his fortune in Colón, Panama. After 4 years, he returned home and started his own business, which included barbering and opening a modern dancing studio. He was elected as vestryman representing Bawden Town. With the advent of constitutional change in the late 1950s, he became a founding member of the National Democratic Party and was elected under their banner in 1960. His political career spanned 12 years. He was married to Vernice Nee Miller, and the two had 5 children.
Radio Cayman's historical facts vignettes are proudly brought to you by Cayman National, with branches on all 3 Cayman Islands. Visit Cayman National Bank today for all of your financial needs.
When you need stability, think Business of the Year.
Considering a new career opportunity, think Best Place to Work.
When dependability matters, think Outstanding Workforce.
In need of a reliable financial partner, think Bank of the Year.
When you seek excellence, think Cayman National.
No matter how many accomplishments we achieve, we always set the bar higher. That's why we are the most awarded bank in Cayman, and we are proud to be your
2018 Bank of the Year.
I remember playing at 7 Mile Beach as a boy, eating mango by the sea, learning how to snorkel. My mother, she worked so hard to provide for our family so that we could have those moments. Seeing her age has been tough. That strong, capable woman, now in need of daily support, it's my time to be strong for her.
CTMH Doctors Hospital Pharmacy understands the importance of the careful decisions you make every day for your family. Our staff work towards healthcare excellence and providing the most current and up-to-date training with pharmaceutical care, so you can feel confident in knowing that your family is safe with the right medication. At CTMH Doctors Hospital Pharmacy, we take care of your health.
They say cleaning your house never killed anyone, but why take chances? Spend your time doing what you love and leave the rest to Roper's Janitorial. Complete janitorial service for commercial, industrial, and residential with 24-hour emergency service. Roper's Janitorial, 949-2511. Email janitorial@ropers.ky. Take back your life and get the job done right the first time. Roper's Janitorial, 949-2511.
Wow, it seems I buy a battery every year.
Oh, for real? You should buy your car battery from Vampman. Their batteries are tough. I have a 3-year warranty on mine.
Oh, I know that trick. I take it back and they charge me a percentage of the price.
Hear me out, bro. Not at Vamp Bobo. You can get a 3-year full warranty, no charge. And if they install it at Vamp, it includes free towing and jumping service. And let me tell you, you will never have to get your hands dirty changing no battery.
Get Motorcraft Max or Plus battery for 20% off when it's installed by the service department at Vamp Motors on Walker's Road. Now that's a deal you can get charged up about. Vamp Motors, keeping you on the road.
Sometimes having a middleman is not a bad thing, especially when it comes to insurance. Do you know that when it comes to cost, ease, speed, and peace of mind, insurance brokers ranked higher than when customers buy direct. So, for all your insurance needs, call Fidelity Insurance. We're the middleman you want. Call us today at 949-7822. Fidelity. We're good for you.
Some of us have perfect skin, and some of us have trouble with acne, age spots, and sun-damaged skin. Protect your skin, reduce the effects of sun damage, and restore a healthy, glowing look with dermatology treatment at Beyond Basics Medical Day Spa. General, cosmetic, and surgical dermatologist services by Dr. Geronimo Jones include treatment of acne, keloids, eczema, hair and nail disorders, and skin complications from chronic sun damage. Dermatology treatments are covered by most insurance providers. Book your consult with Dr. Geronimo Jones at Beyond Basics today. Call 945-2737.
System 1 loaded.
1-800-534-8255. What is on your mind when it comes to the government, independence, and the opposition? Issues that matter to you. 1-800-534-8255. Waiting to hear from you. For the Record.
This is For the Record with Orrett Connor.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. In the studio with me, Supervisor of Elections, Mr. Wesley Howell. We're talking about the verification process as the Elections Office continue not only the door-to-door verification process, but also the establishment of booths at certain locations for people to come in. And I believe they can even make appointments, to come in for the verification process as well, or something like that.
Absolutely. So we've had one registering officer who, at request, attended a church service and took her forms with her. And after the service, she was able to verify just shy of a dozen signatures. So, we aim to be accommodating. We want to be mindful that we have limited resources and very limited time. So, we want a decent number of individuals if we're going to do that. But the persons going door to door are making special arrangements to meet persons at their workplace and other places if they can't find them at home in order to make sure that verification happens.
Okay, and I want to remind our audience that Mr. Howell is only going to be here until 8 o'clock as well. The process, how it started, we know that I believe that copies of the petition were delivered to you as well as the governor's representative?
Absolutely. So the government made it clear that they wanted a verification process to happen and they wanted all the signatures to be verified. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, there's actually no role for the elections office to play. Right. We're not mentioned in the Constitution. There is no legislation. So that's the only reason that we're in this space is because we've been asked to do this this process by the government. Now, after that request has been made, I physically moved and literally moved from my role as a chief officer to fully as supervisor of elections. Mm-hmm. I now speak directly to the governor in relation to the operation of the office and run, quite independently and transparently as we go forward with this. So that was the initial part of it. The door-to-door bit was decided after some consultation in that other countries are using sort of sample sizes and percentage of non-accurate details. None of that was decided ahead of time, and we were faced with how long is this length of string. So what sample size would be reasonable and acceptable? How many unverified signatures in that sample would pass or not pass? So the countries that we looked at that had that legislation had very specific criteria, and they're all over the place. Not all countries had the people-initiated portion of it, and not all countries had a binding referendum, which is the other part. So the power of the referendum in relation to being initiated by the people and then be binding on the government is quite powerful within the Constitution. And I think that is one of the justifications for this process. And while we're doing door-to-door, we're talking about 5,000 plus signatures. So in the big scheme of things, compared to other countries, this is a very, very small number. And the fact that we can cover sort of 30% within the first 2 weeks of going door-to-door, almost 30%, is sort of an idea of this is not a delaying tactic, but it is a reasonable approach to get very certain, verified numbers that we can stand on as we go forward.
Okay, and the release continues to, goes on to say that the verifiers will continue going door to door, North Side, East End, Bordentown, West Bay, as well as Cayman Brac and Little Cayman. I notice Georgetown isn't mentioned there. Tell us what's happening with Georgetown.
So Georgetown is well, from an area perspective, Georgetown is quite massive in relation to numbers of persons. Georgetown also constitutes 44% of the petitioners' signatures as well. So that's 2,407 of the petitioners are within the Georgetown area. So we started working in, and we will deploy additional persons in Georgetown, plus we will be able to redirect persons who have finished up their other districts into Georgetown as well. And we're looking to have Georgetown started next week with the first couple of electoral districts within Georgetown rolling out. But it is massive, 2,007 persons within the Georgetown area, and that's from the first submission, and we're expecting additional names from the CPR group shortly.
Okay. Now, I know this interview was sort of like put together, very quickly. And I just want to mention to our listening and viewing audience also that you will be on Talk Today this afternoon with Sterling Duaney Banks.
Absolutely.
As well.
So 1 to 2:30, I think, is our slot. Yeah.
So any information, any questions that they may have, if they're unable to do so now, the opportunity will arise again this afternoon as well. Time goes quickly. I want to give you an opportunity for some final comments and any points that you want to get across to our audience.
Really want to remind persons who might be traveling and will be away for extended periods to contact us before they go. They can call us at 949-8047. They can email us at office@elections.ky. They can go to our website and get our contact information there. But it would be great if we could get them to come in and verify their signatures before they leave. If persons are already overseas and are listening via the internet and are going to be watching on YouTube, then if they have signed a petition and want to verify, they can contact us at the same methodology. Email us. We'll send them. We'll request some documents from them. We'll send them the necessary forms to be witnessed by somebody else, and then those will come back to us. If necessary, the registering officer will give them a call to confirm identity and assure themselves of that. So we started treating them like we would have postal ballot at this point. But we want to make sure that persons don't get disenfranchised just because they're not physically here.
And for those, again, a reminder, for those who are curious about the process and how it is progressing, remind them again about the web ticker that you have established.
So persons can go on to our webpage, elections.ky, and scroll down a little bit, particularly if they're on a phone, and there they will see the numbers in relation to our last update and when it was last updated, and we aim to update that at least twice a week, so persons can see our progress. We're being very transparent with this because we are moving as fast as we can move in relation to making this happen, and we want the public to see that we're making that happen.
Okay, I want to wish you all the best in your endeavors. I want to say to you also, doing an excellent job. Keep up the good work as well.
Thank you, sir. You and Mr. Gomez and Mr. Colford left some really big shoes to fill, so I'm endeavoring to live up to your standards.
You're doing quite well. You're doing exceedingly well. Folks, please stay tuned. For the record, we'll be back immediately after the 8 o'clock news.
Thank you.
Studio time now by Price Right is 8 o'clock.
Price Right is Grand Cayman's warehouse shopping superstore, making your dollar go further with huge savings and no membership fees. Get more of the things you use every day at the right price. But it's not just grocery and health and beauty. Price Right has a full range of products from office to automotive, patio furnishings to kitchen appliances, and even electronics. And since warehouse prices mean savings for you, everything is priced right at Price Right, Grand Cayman's warehouse shopping superstore. Access information. Your community. News and information. Radio Cayman is your choice, your voice for today's biggest news. Radio Cayman.
With your latest news, I'm Carsley Fuller. The Department of Environment raises concerns about the local parrot population. CIG-TV's Donna Bush reports.
They're particularly concerned about our national bird, the Cayman parrot, because we lost an estimated 50 to 60% of our parrot population during Hurricane Ivan back in 2004, and more than half of the parrots on Cayman Brac during 2008's Hurricane Paloma.
I think it's important that we always consider our effects on the natural environment, in particular when it comes to smaller populations that are found nowhere else. Things that we can do is to preserve habitat even on our smaller lots, because as we develop more and more of the island, we will have to coexist with our natural environment, and whatever little we can each do, like preserving older trees for nesting or fruit trees and that sort of thing, is really quite important.
And she added that Cayman parrots are a protected species under the National Conservation Law. The Grand Cayman parrots are now mostly restricted to the central and eastern mangroves and dry forests. And over on the Brac, breeding mainly occurs on the bluff and in the dry forest.
To find out more about the Cayman parrot and conservation efforts, visit doe.ky. Fresh from the 2019 America's Cultural Summit, Cayman National Cultural Foundation Chair Martin Bold says the experience was valuable on multiple levels.
In Cayman, and I think it's true in all fields, we get good at what we do compared with backdrop of Cayman, but how good in fact are we on a global basis?
Mr. Bold says interacting with people from 20 different countries and exploring ideas, issues, and concerns provided a means of self-evaluation. The summit was held in Buenos Aires in late June. And the deadline to register for the 2020 Leadership Cayman program is fast approaching. Radio Cayman's April Cummings has more.
Leadership Cayman is a 6-month intensive interactive program providing members with an in-depth view of social, economic, business, political, and community aspects of the Cayman Islands. It also helps them develop new leadership skills. The 2020 program starts in October 2019, and recruitment is underway. To be eligible for the program, you must have lived in the Cayman Islands for at least 1 year, be at least 25 years of age by January 1st, 2020, and you should be in a middle management position at your current place of employment. If you think you are suitable for the program and would like to learn more, there are 2 info sessions on Wednesday, July 17th and Wednesday the 24th from 6 to 7 p.m. Find out more at leadershipcayman.ky. The application deadline is July 31st. April Cummings, Radio Cayman News.
Now with a check of international news, here's the BBC, which will take us out of the newscast. I'm Carsley Fuller from Radio Cayman's newsroom.
BBC News with Jerry Smith. Britain's ambassador to the United States, Hakim Darroch, has resigned after infuriating President Trump by describing his administration as inept and dysfunctional in messages leaked to a newspaper. In a letter to the head of Britain's foreign ministry, Hakim said it was now impossible for him to do his job. The Prime Minister, Theresa May, has said she deeply regrets his resignation. She said such good government depended on public servants being able to give frank advice. The UN nuclear watchdog is holding an emergency meeting at the request of the US to discuss the crisis over Tehran's nuclear program. The US is hoping to increase pressure on Iran at the meeting of the IAEA, but no concrete action is expected. The German Chancellor Angela Merkel has suffered another shaking spell, the third in less than a month. She was seen trembling while accompanying her visiting Finnish counterpart in Berlin. She has said she's fine. A Spanish court has ruled that Julio Iglesias is the biological father of a 43-year-old man whose mother had a brief affair with the singer. The ruling was based on testimony by Javier Sanchez's mother and his resemblance to Mr. Iglesias, who had refused to take a DNA test. Officials in Nepal say 2 people, including a police officer, have been killed in a gun battle with suspected Maoist rebels in the east of the country. The Maoists opened fire on a police team patrolling a market. BBC News.
Access. Information. What's happening in your community? News and information, music and more. You can find us. www.radiocayman.gov.ky. Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. Radio Cayman is your choice, your voice for today's biggest news. Radio Cayman.
Always ensure that food preparation utensils are washed with a strong detergent and rinsed in hot water in the event that they have made contact with flood water. Boil silverware for 10 minutes and immerse glass, porcelain, china, and plastic items in a solution of hot water and 10% chlorine bleach before use. For more post-hurricane food safety tips, visit DEH website at deh.gov.ky.
The Weather Report is proudly sponsored by Super Stitch Sewing and Fabric Center, your one-stop household store at 39 Pasador Place, Smith Road. Still offering the best prices in town. Call 949-2833 or go to superstitch.com.ky. New stock has just arrived at Super Stitch. Now don't take my word for it. Drop by and see for yourself. Fresh off the boat, we have loads of fabric, vinyl upholstery fabric, fabric for cushions, outdoor fabrics, and dress fabric. That's not all. Super Stitch has sewing accessories and craft items. Included in the new shipment, you will find sheets, comforters, throw pillows, bath mats, rugs, and curtains for every room in your home. Super Stitch, 39 Pasador Place, Smith Road. Still offering the best price in town. Call 949-2833 or go to superstitch.com.ky.
Pleasant good morning. Time now for the latest weather report. Current temperature is relative humidity is 85%. Barometric pressure 30.00 inches and rising. The wind is east at 6 knots. Overnight low temperature was 75 degrees. Synopsis indicate cloudiness and showers associated with an upper level trough will continue over the Cayman area for the next 24 hours as the trough slowly retrogresses west. Further east, a tropical wave just west of Jamaica will move into the Cayman area today, supporting additional cloudiness and showers. Radar images show scattered showers north and east of the islands, moving northwest. Now, the forecast for today and tonight calling for partly cloudy to cloudy skies with a 40% chance of showers and thunder, and showers will be locally heavy at times. Temperatures will be in the upper 80s today and fall to the upper 70s tonight. Winds will be east to southeast at 5 to 10 knots, and seas will be smooth to slight with wave heights of less than 2 feet. Low tide this morning will occur at 11:21. High tide this evening at 11 minutes past 6. The sun will set this evening at 7:06 and will rise tomorrow morning at 5:55. And the outlook is calling for a decrease in cloudiness and showers from tomorrow afternoon as the upper level trough weakens over the western Caribbean.
Super Stitch Sewing and Fabric Center was a proud sponsor of the Weather Report, your one-stop shop for all of your household items, craft items, jewelry, beads, and decorations, and much more. Call Super Stitch at 949-2833 or email customer care at superstitch.com.ky. New stock has just arrived at Super Stitch. Now don't take my word for it. Drop by and see for yourself. Fresh off the boat, we have loads of fabric, vinyl upholstery fabric, fabric for cushions, outdoor fabrics, and dress fabric. That's not all. Super Stitch has sewing accessories and craft items. Included in the new shipment, you will find sheets, comforters, throw pillows, bath mats, rugs, and curtains for every room in your home. Super Stitch, 39 Pasador Place, Smith Road. Still offering the best price in town. Call 949-2833 or go to superstitch.com.ky.
Good morning once again. Let's take a look at what's happening on our roads traffic-wise. Traffic busy in some sections of Crew Road, other sections steady. On the Linford Pearson Highway and Shamrock Road, things are not looking too bad as traffic is steady but flowing. Moderate flow of traffic on Huldah Avenue, Thomas Russell Way. Traffic is moving along pretty good, as well as coming from the Westway 4-way stop, and also on Owen Roberts Drive, light traffic. Godfrey Nixon Way and Easton Avenue, traffic is flowing pretty good as well, as traffic is moderate, and moderate flow of traffic coming from the Butterfield Roundabout heading towards the Industrial Park area. And traffic coming off of Bobby Thompson Way is moderate. That's the very latest into traffic. Join us again at about 10 minutes after 12. We'll update you traffic-wise. Drive safe, Cayman Islands.
What do we love more than summertime? Extra flights between Cayman and Jamaica with Cayman Airways, of course. Cayman Airways has added extra flights weekly for travel between Grand Cayman and Kingston this July and August. Visit family and friends in Jamaica or send for them to visit you in Cayman. But hurry, these extra seats will sell out fast, so book yours today. Remember now, check-in time is 2 hours before departure. Call Cayman Airways reservations on 949-2311. Contact a travel agent or book online at CaymanAirways.com. Traffic congestion is bad for your mental health, bad for your wallet, and bad for the environment. Did you know that Cayman's carbon emissions per capita are nearly 4 times that of Europe, according to worlddata.info? Empty car seats are a wasted resource and contribute to traffic congestion. Carpooling is socially and environmentally friendly and can save you up to $1,000 per year in fuel and upkeep. Visit the Ministry of Commerce, Planning and Infrastructure Facebook page for more tips on energy-efficient commuting and be an energy advocate. Be sure to tune in every Tuesday and Thursday at 7:30 a.m. for The Business Buzz with Sabrina Turner. Brought to you in part by insurance agents Michael Webster and Denise Brown from Cayman Insurance Center, specializing in life and property insurance. Don't take chances with your family's future.
Radio Cayman 3 to 6 mix on the weekdays. Brought to you by
Cayman Insurance Center, serving the community for 45 years. Don't take chances with your family's future. Call Denise Brown at 814-7229 or Michael Webster at 925-5433. Fitness Plus and Train with Dre. Getting in shape has never been easier with the mobile fitness app by Train with Dre and the new Eco Power Sport Art equipment.
Every day.
All the time.
Visit fitnessplus.com for more information. And City Walk, serving Chinese, Japanese, and Filipino dishes until 11 p.m. each night. East meets West at City Walk. Dine in, take out, or order online. See their full menu at citywalk.ky. Call 947-9965.
Ultimate Party Show in the afternoon. Radio Cayman Super Jam.
For the record, with Orrett Connor.
Initiating system.
For information that matters. For the record, with Orrett Connor. Continues right now on Radio Cayman.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. There are no guests in the studio, no guests at all here. Now we finished our interview with Mr. Wesley Howell. He had to leave. It was short notice interview that we had with Mr. Howell. But I want to remind you that the supervisor of elections, Mr. Wesley Howell, will be on Sterling Dwayne Ebanks' show, Talk Today, this afternoon. And he will again be updating the public on the status of the verification, signature verification process in relation to the port petition. So he will be on. Since there are no guests in the studio, we will continue to have an open line section where you're free to call in, ask questions, make comments. And if you don't do that, then I will attempt to stimulate the conversation. I'm not sure if any of you read the Jamaica Gleaner yesterday, but in their letter to the editor section, there was a letter written, and it was published in the Gleaner, entitled Keep Jacan Crooks Out of Cayman. And the writer says, the editor, Sir, during the recent visit of Prime Minister Andrew Holness to Cayman, he suggested that Cayman open its borders to unrestricted travel by Jamaicans. This is what the writer has said now, okay? Currently, we have a mutual visa regime in place that at least requires some screening of the individual's background in the way of a police report. Please explain to us how we would be able to keep criminals out of our country if we were to open our border to unrestricted travel by your countrymen. Of course, it goes without saying that no one wants the type of criminal activity Jamaica is experiencing in Cayman. I'll read that again, and I'll change the wording slightly so that you understand it. Of course, it goes without saying that no one wants this type of criminal activity in Cayman that Jamaica is experiencing. With that said, Cayman has a large population of law-abiding Jamaican nationals living here, and the writer has affixed his name to the letter as well, but I have not. I will not call the writer's name. If you want to know that, if you're interested in the article, you can access yesterday's Jamaica Gleaner. If not, Google Keep Jamaican Crooks Out of Cayman, and I'm sure that it'll pop up on your screen as well, and you can read it, and you can see who the author of that letter was. Of course, as you know, the Cayman Islands, we are not a full member of CARICOM. We are an associate member of CARICOM. But one of the tricky and sticking points with CARICOM membership, has to do with integration and free movement of people. That has always been the sticking point. And just like the reasons for the failure of the Federation of the West Indies, because unlike Europe or the United States, these islands are separated by water, so it is not one a monolith of landmass. There are islands separated by water. Integration, free movement is a little bit more difficult, a little bit more tricky. Plus, everyone's desire, every country's desire to retain their sovereignty as well. So I say that to say that because we're only an associate member of CARICOM, this whole idea of free movement does not relate to us here in the Cayman Islands. Of course, there are some Caribbean countries, for instance, Haiti, and of course Jamaica, where we have a visa regime in place that persons wishing to travel here have to first obtain a visa. And always remember, even those of you who have your U.S. visas, that when you are in possession of a visa, it is not a guarantee. It is not a guarantee that you will be allowed to enter a country. It is the first step in the process, and it is a required step in the process that you obtain a visa. But the ultimate decision as to whether or not you're allowed to enter and remain in that country is left to those persons who are in charge of border control, either immigration or customs officers who are in charge of border control. So the issue of free movement is not one that the Cayman Islands is challenged about. But there are certainly ways, and we have spoken recently and often about Cayman's historic connections with Jamaica, and there is no reason why that should not continue. There's a lot that we could benefit in terms of trade with Jamaica, and I'm sure that there are a lot of ways that Jamaica does benefit from the Cayman Islands as well. We also saw the Prime Minister of Jamaica when he was here urging Jamaicans here to invest in their country, invest in their country. Now, that there's a reason for the Prime Minister making that clarion call, and it is because of the amount of remittances that go back to Jamaica and the fact that many Jamaicans here in the Cayman Islands have prospered, have benefited financially and continue to benefit financially from the Cayman Islands and have that additional capital that they, or discretionary wealth that they can invest as well. And he, of course, is encouraging them to invest that in their country, Jamaica. Of course, there are many Jamaicans who not only see Cayman as their second home, but probably as their first home now, and probably have no intentions whatsoever of returning to Jamaica as well. I'm told that we have a caller. Let's go to the phone lines. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning to you, Mr. O.C.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
Just fine, thank you. I just wanted to clarify something when I was talking to you recently about Mr. Roland Borden and all the other carpenters here.
Oh, yes.
I didn't mean to slight any of them at all. I understand Dr. Steve McField's point of view. Many of those names he mentioned were close friends and boyhood friends of my father, and they all grew up and had problems together as colored men in Georgetown, I have to be very frank, and they excelled at carpentry. Many of the names he mentioned, Mr. Russell Deere and Kitchener Solomon, Lorraine Russell, they used to come to Jamaica and work with my father and Captain Foster and their boat building thing. And Mr. Ira Walton also. Many stories I can tell you of Mr. Ira and Errol Flynn, his experience with Errol Flynn, the famous actor and all that, was a yachtsman too. And the others, Mr. Solomon, Kitchener Solomon, there were many. And Mr. McField's grandfather, Neil Lemuel, used to come to Jamaica also and work with my father. I would call him over, and he was a master ads man. I remember, I'm pretty sure it was him, my father said, could almost save you with an ad. He was, for ads and all. I'm pretty sure it was him. And there were quite a few others. I think Mr. Kitchener Solomon, Stacy, you remember Stacy?
Yes.
I think he's the only Canadian, I know of who ran for a seat in the general election in Jamaica. That's the only one I know of. I think it was either the 62 or 66 elections. He ran for some part of St. Andrew, I think it was, but there are others who may be able to correct that. I just saw that other thing. Those were all great carpenters. There are several more also that we might not have been able to mention. Kudos to them because, as you said, they're not often mentioned. And thank you very much for allowing me to say this.
Sure, and I did, caller, I did mention to Dr. Steve McField that you simply mentioned Roland Borden, but you weren't. I didn't think that it was your intention of saying that he alone was the person.
On the Ensign Memorial, there are many on there, but I just wanted to show that he's often left out when we talk about his famous brother. Mm-hmm. And Mr. Roland was actually the carpenter. You know what I mean? The carpenter, the jobs, whether he was a foreman or a lead carpenter, whatever you want to call it. But in other words, that's the forgotten part of that to the two brothers there. You know, that Mr. Roland was the carpenter, and this is some wonderful carpenter, and that's very important to remember him. I just thought so. Thank you very much, sir, for giving me the time.
Thank you very much, caller, for that as well. There's another article that I want to share with our listening audience, and it has to do with an article written by a gentleman by the name of Robert McClellan, who's the managing director of McClellan and Associates. And the article is entitled "A Call for Caribbean Governments to Tax Cruise Sector More and Tax Air Passengers Less." There is always the discussion here in the Cayman Islands in terms of the amount of revenue that is realized from cruise passengers as opposed to stay over tourists, and this may be a part of that. I'm going to start to read this. We may have to. I may have to interrupt it at some point in time to go to a commercial break, or if not, I'll finish it and then we will probably run the commercial later on. But I want to share this article with you as well. And it starts by saying, "Can tourism-dependent Caribbean governments learn something from oil-producing countries?" When relatively small and poor oil-producing governments sought to get a fair price for oil, their main source of national revenue, they banded together to negotiate more effectively with the multinational oil companies and the larger developed nations, which were the major consumers of their oil. In 1960, 5 of these countries came together to form OPEC, the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, and were later joined by 9 additional member states. As a result of their joint strong bargaining power, oil prices have risen relatively steady from U.S. $1.63 per barrel in 1960 to an average of around U.S. $77 during the last 10 years. The weak negotiating position of individual Caribbean governments versus the massive cruise line corporations relative to port taxes poses similarities to OPEC's situation 60 years ago, and the same potential rebalancing strategy should now be pursued in the Caribbean. If governments across the whole region, including Central America, come together and form OTEC, the Organization of Tourism Economy Countries, they can negotiate as a cartel from a position of greater strength with the cruise lines. Currently, when individual countries try to increase port taxes, they are threatened with being dropped from the cruise itineraries and can be picked off one by one by the powerful cruise lines. From a better bargaining position, state or national governments with single destination cruise itineraries, they are Alaska, Bermuda, and Hawaii, have already negotiated higher cruise port revenues than those of the average Caribbean country. Cruise ships stay 2 nights in Bermuda and pay at least U.S. $50 per passenger. For mainland United States and Canada, cruise itineraries, an average of 33% of the cruise ticket price goes to port taxes, compared to an average of 14% for a Caribbean itinerary. By negotiating together, governments in the Greater Caribbean region can achieve similar results to those destinations with higher port taxes. A recent statement from the government of Antigua and Barbuda summarized the history and current situation of regional cruise taxes as follows. In 1993, CARICOM countries initially agreed to impose a minimum of U.S. $10 port head tax for cruise passengers, but this was never implemented because of internal disagreements. A range of today's head taxes in the Caribbean is as follows. US $18 for the Bahamas and the British Virgin Islands. US $15 for Jamaica. US $13.25 Puerto Rico. $7 Belize. $6 St. Kitts and Nevis. $5 St. Lucia. $4.50 Grenada. $1.50 Dominican Republic. No mention of the Cayman Islands in those figures, and I'll try to see if we can obtain the figures for the Cayman Islands. If you do know those figures, please let us know. Have to take a break now. When I return, I will continue to share the contents of this article with you entitled A Call for Caribbean Governments to Tax Cruise Sector More and Tax Air Passengers Less. Please stay tuned for the record. We'll be back shortly.
They say cleaning your house never killed anyone, but why take chances? Spend your time doing what you love and leave the rest to Roper's Janitorial. Complete janitorial service for commercial, industrial, and residential with 24-hour emergency service. Roper's Janitorial, 949-2511. Email janitorial@ropers.ky. Take back your life and get the job done right the first time. Roper's Janitorial, 949-2511.
Wow, it seems I buy a battery every year.
Oh, for real? You should buy your car battery from Vantman. Their batteries are tough. I have a 3-year warranty on mine.
Oh, I know that trick. I take it back and they charge me a percentage of the price.
Hear me out, bro. Not at Vamp Bobo. You can get a 3-year full warranty, no charge. And if they install it at Vamp, it includes free towing and jumping service. And let me tell you, you will never have to get your hands dirty changing no battery.
Get Motorcraft Max or Plus battery for 20% off when it's installed by the service department at Vamp Motors on Walker's Road. Now that's a deal you can get charged up about. Vamp Motors, keeping you on the road.
At Seaboard Marine, customers often ask us questions about their shipments.
Hi, I'm thinking of buying a car from the States. Which port do you ship out of?
Hi, we ship out of Miami, Houston, and Brooklyn. Just let us know your port of choice and we can provide you with a quotation and answer any questions you may have on insuring and protecting your vehicle during its journey.
Shipping shore to shore, Seaboard.
At Logic, we make things better for our customers. It's why we're offering free Boost Wi-Fi. With Boost, you get improved Wi-Fi connectivity everywhere in your home, so there's no more dead zones. The only people we're not making this better for is parents. Because now with seamless Wi-Fi in every room in your home, go to your room isn't really the punishment it used to be. Sorry about that. Sign up now for any Logic Bundle package and get free Boost Wi-Fi for a limited time. Visit logic.ky for details.
System 1 loaded.
1-800-534-8255. What is on your mind when it comes to the government, independence, and the opposition? Issues that matter to you. 1-800-534-8255. Waiting to hear from you. For the Record.
This is For the Record with Orrett Connor.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. I have no guest in the studio, so I was sharing with you an article written by a gentleman by the name of Robert McClellan, Managing Director of McClellan and Associates, and that article entitled A Call for Caribbean Governments to Tax Cruise Cruise Sector More and Tax Air Passengers Less. And in that article, there was a list of countries given where head taxes are imposed on the cruise ship passengers. And the writer indicated that in 1993, CARICOM countries initially agreed to impose a minimum of U.S. $10 port head tax for cruise passengers, and went on to list those countries that and what they charge in terms of a head tax And they pointed out that in the Bahamas and the British Virgin Islands, it's $18 US. In Jamaica, it's 15 US dollars. Puerto Rico, it is $13.25. In Belize, it is $7. St. Kitts and Nevis, it's US $6. In St. Lucia, $5. Grenada, $4.50. Dominican Republic, $1.50. And I stand to be corrected, but I believe ours is at $10. Again, I didn't have enough time between the commercial break while doing my other stuff to find that, but I believe it is $10. If you do know the figure, feel free to call in, send me a WhatsApp message, text message, whatever, letting me know. So I will continue reading. It says, the writer goes on to say, imagine the economic benefits if these cruise tax rates could be increased and standardized across the region at the higher levels listed. One directly relevant and current challenge could be addressed. The current sky-high airport and air ticket taxes in the region could be reduced to help increase the volume of stay-over visitors in the Caribbean. Stay-over travelers, whether intra-regional or from outside the Caribbean, spend very much more than cruise ship passengers and generate considerably more local employment than today's cruise ship business model, which is now highly exploitative of Caribbean countries. An increase in stay-over visitors drives the development of more hotels and marinas, as well as many other forms of real estate and tourism infrastructure investment. Reduced air ticket prices keep intra-regional airlines like Liat flying and increase the number of airline seats in the Caribbean destinations from the rest of the world. The cruise industry business model has changed radically and aggressively in the last 15 years and should no longer be viewed as an ideal quote-unquote partner for the countries of the Caribbean. There is a growing sense in the islands with the highest cruise ship volumes, like St. Thomas and St. Martin, that today's port taxes are not adequate compensation for the overcrowding of downtown areas, the pollution from the burning of heavy fuel oil, and the minimal spend ashore of today's cruise ship passengers. The mega ships now have multiple shops, casinos, restaurants, and bars offering all-inclusive packages that totally distract passengers from spending ashore. In the last 20 years, ships' commissions on shore excursions have risen from 10% to 50%, discouraging passengers from going ashore at all and squeezing any possible profit margin for local tour operators. Today, over 80% of a cruise ship passenger's discretionary spend is on board. I will repeat that. Today, over 80% of a cruise ship passenger's discretionary spend is on board. Now, that could have to do with the fact that they probably spend more time on board a cruise ship than they spend on land as well, depending on the cruise that you're on. The article goes on to say that most cruise ships enjoy a double high season, Caribbean for less than 6 months, and the balance of the year in Alaska or the Mediterranean, operating virtually free of corporation taxes and with very low wage bills. The largest ship costs less than US $300,000 per cabin to build, while new hotel rooms in the Caribbean cost double that figure per room to develop and have only one high season. The cruise ship's highly competitive business model and the further recent growth of cruise tourism in the region might be viewed as a direct disincentive for resort investment and reinvestment in the Caribbean. The total number of cruise ship passengers was over 27 million worldwide in 2018, up nearly 10% from 2 years earlier. In the next 10 years, 106 new ships are expected to enter service, and currently over 50% of the world's cruise fleet is based in the Caribbean. Again, bear that in mind. Over 50% of the world's cruise fleet is based in the Caribbean for the winter. The hugely profitable cruise industry can afford to absorb higher port fees in the Caribbean and will do so once faced with a stronger negotiating entity. Do not believe any cruise line's threats that they can pull out of the region altogether. The Caribbean is the only archipelago with natural beauty and sophisticated tourism infrastructure located directly between the established feeder cruise markets of North America and Europe and the growth feeder market for South America. Is it not now abundantly clear that at the very least there is an absolute logic for rebalancing the tax burden between the Caribbean stayover visitor and the cruise ship passenger? I think this is a very interesting article. What I have read here, we have heard people in the Cayman Islands talk about it. People have called in on this talk show and other talk shows to speak about it as well, comparing and contrasting cruise tourism with stayover cruise tourism as well. I think this article is extremely instructive. Many points have been brought across. Again, what will thwart the Caribbean countries from banding together, putting up a united front and strong bargaining position with the cruise lines? What will do that will be the individual incentives of each country to gain as much, to get as much as advantage as they can, and the whole concept of divide and rule will come into play as well. Also, the attractiveness of each Caribbean destination. And while the Cayman Islands may not have as much as other countries in terms of what they offer, the things that we do offer, sun, sea, sand, or people, or welcoming of people, very low crime rates and everything else, those are attributes that each individual country will have and advantages that they will have and that they will use as well. What I have noticed is that quite recently for the U.S. market, the Dominican Republic has been in the spotlight in relation to the number of deaths taking place there. Now, whether or not these similar deaths were happening in the past and it wasn't highlighted, all of a sudden, the U.S. press, journalists have focused in on that, and now as soon as someone catches a cold when they travel to the Dominican Republic, it is reported in the news. What I believe is commendable as far as the Caribbean is concerned is that I have not seen any country, at least publicly, try to lure tourists and visitors from the Dominican Republic as a result of the adverse publicity that they're getting these days. And that is good as well, because we should not be pitting ourselves against our Caribbean neighbors if they have a problem. We should not try to use that to our advantage as well. Time for us to take a commercial break. Folks, please stay tuned for the record. We'll be back shortly.
Did you know the third most important factor for customer retention is cleanliness? With 95% of shoppers saying exterior appearance influences where they decide to shop. Keep your business clean with Roper's Janitorial. From offices to restaurants, interior and exterior, walls to rugs and flooring, Roper's cleans it all, including 24-hour emergency service. Roper's Janitorial, 949-2511. Email janitorial@ropers.ky. Dress your business for success with Roper's Janitorial. We make your business shine. 949-2511.
CTMH Doctors Hospital Pharmacy, formerly known as Professional Pharmacy, would like to thank the Cayman communities for their loyal support these past 18 years. Our staff work towards healthcare excellence and providing the most current and up-to-date training with pharmaceutical care. Thorough background checks and follow-up consultations is only the beginning. Your safety is our concern. Our staff are respected healthcare professionals whose job requires careful and precise calculations. Thank you for being a part of our family and for choosing CTMH Doctors Hospital Pharmacy, where we prepare to provide exceptional care. At CTMH Doctors Hospital Pharmacy, we care about your health.
Summertime is when Cayman Airways full of people are travel to Jamaica. If you're late for checking your flight, you will lose your seat. Remember now, check-in time for Cayman Airways flight is 2 hours before departure. Make sure you're not late.
Some of us have perfect skin, and some of us have trouble with acne, age spots, and sun-damaged skin. Protect your skin, reduce the effects of sun damage, and restore a healthy, glowing look with dermatology treatment at Beyond Basics Medical Day Spa. General, cosmetic, and surgical dermatologist services by Dr. Geronimo Jones include treatment of acne, keloids, eczema, hair and nail disorders, and skin complications from chronic sun damage. Dermatology treatments are covered by most insurance providers. Book your consult with Dr. Geronimo Jones at Beyond Basics today. Call 945-2737.
For the record, with Orrett Connor.
Initiating system.
For information that matter. For the record, with Orrett Connor. Continues right now on Radio Cayman.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. No guests in the studio. So we have an open line for you to call in if you so wish. I notice, and I don't get an opportunity to listen to all of the radio stations, and of course my favorite radio station is Radio Cayman, but we have not heard much recently from the persons who were involved in the petition and the seeking of signatures. We haven't heard anything since the verification process started, and I'm just assuming, and I could be incorrect in my assumption, and they always say if you were to take the word assume and take the acronyms backwards, what that means, I wouldn't want to fall into that situation, into that trap at all. But I'm assuming that they're quite happy with the verification process, quite satisfied with the way that it is being played out. Hence, not much comment from them recently in that regard. I'm going to share with you now an article from the Tradewinds newspaper dated the 28th of July, 1966. And this editorial could be just as appropriate and applicable today as it was in 1966 as it relates to politics. And the editorial is entitled, "It's Not My Fault." "It's not my fault" is an expression too often heard in these islands, that is the Cayman Islands. It has been said, "Show me one who has never made a mistake, and I will show you a person who has never done anything." Whenever one is faced with making a decision or undertaking an activity, one must necessarily run the risk of making a mistake. Only he who is omnipotent is free from error now that the divine right of kings has been proven false. Mature persons must realize this risk and take it and bear the responsibility for it, not to try to escape with, quote unquote, "It is not my fault." It is the region of government that the danger of this escapist attitude is most obvious. Members are elected to the Legislative Assembly. They are not forced to run for an office. They undertake it voluntarily and, in fact, compete strenuously for elected office. The voters expect those they elect to undertake the responsibility of government and to accept it and the risk of errors. Certainly, elected members of all people should not answer criticism with, quote unquote, "It's not my fault." If there is the suggestion of mistake, the shock answer is, it was the Executive Council or it was the administrator who is responsible. These days, it was the cabinet or it was the governor. So we just replace Executive Council with cabinet and administrator with government. These days, the shock answer is it was the Executive Council or it was the administrator who's responsible, not me. If our elected representatives are not going to be or alert and effective, quote-unquote, watchdogs to ensure that the government is fair, honest, economic, and effective, then why do we bother to have elected representatives at all? Surely, the least the elected members can do if government action is questioned is to demand a public inquiry to find out where the responsibility lies, to be in a position to prevent its recurrence, not to just shrug it off as not my fault. Unquestionably, the administrator, as the head of government, must bear the ultimate responsibility for all government actions, but does he ever act contrary to the express wishes of the Executive Council or the Assembly? If he does, we are all entitled to know about it and utilize the safeguards we have in that behalf, and we venture to believe that they are exceedingly effective safeguards. I will come back to that particular paragraph later on to compare it with what obtains today. What we want are the facts, both bold and open for all to see. Was the issue in question, whatever it may be, brought to the Assembly? How did the members react to it? How did they vote on it, and why? Was it brought to the Executive Council? If so, how did the members of that body react to it? How did they vote on it, and why? If the administrator has acted without consulting these bodies, did he report and explain his actions to these bodies promptly, and if so, what was their reaction? We would be surprised to find that the present administrator does things contrary to the wish expressed or implied of the Executive Council or the Legislative Assembly. more likely he takes the initiative in getting the job of government done and convinces or persuades the elected members to accept his point of view. If this be the case, why don't the members say, when criticized, well, I had some doubt or misgivings, but the administrator convinced me that his point of view was right, so I supported him, and make no apologies for so doing. If I was wrong, I am sorry and will try to do better next time, instead of trying to put the blame on the executive council, the administrator, or someone else. So easy to attribute the blame to someone above, and who can question it once members themselves make such a statement. Do I have enough time to finish? Yep. Yes, I do. Throughout history, this simple device of shrugging off responsibility to those above or below has been attempted. In the Army, it is known as passing the buck, and the administrator is in a similar position in this regard as President Truman, who kept a prominent sign on his desk: the buck stops here. The escapism of "it's not my fault" must cease. Call a spade and accept the responsibility for it. Remember that to err is human, to forgive divine. Alexander Pope, 1688 to 1744, in his essay on criticism, Part 1. So that's the editorial in 1966, talking about elected members of our legislative assembly, members of executive council, and passing the buck, passing the blame to someone else. Now, last week, we had discussions. We celebrated on the 4th of July, 60 years of constitutional development in the Cayman Islands, our first constitution 60 years ago. We spoke about how our constitutions evolved to the present constitution that we have today. More control over the economic affairs of our country. More decision-making given to our legislative assembly, to our elected members of the assembly, more decision-making given to our cabinet. But at the same time, the UK still has the nuclear option in relation to disallowance of laws or the imposition of laws by order in council on the Cayman Islands. So, as many rightly argue, our parliament is not supreme. It is not a supreme parliament, because decisions that are made there can be undone by the administering power as well. Have to go to a commercial break. When we return, the conversation will continue, so please stay tuned.
Satisfaction is guaranteed 24 hours a day, whether it's music or information.
From Grand Cayman to Cayman Brac to Little Cayman, we've got you covered.
You ever hear a thing like that?
Radio Cayman in the Cayman Islands.
Radio Cayman. Radio Cayman's newsroom. These are the biggest stories right now.
The call is out for artists to join the newest exhibition currently being developed at the National Gallery that seeks to examine, through work by local artists, the vital role women played in the development of early modern Caymanian society from the 1800s through the mid-20th century. About 15 artists will be selected, and if you're interested in participating, you can email collections@nationalgallery.org.ky. Sir Kim Derrick has resigned as UK ambassador to the U.S. amid a row over leaked emails critical of President Trump's administration. The ambassador was branded a, quote, very stupid guy by the U.S. president after emails emerged calling his administration, quote, clumsy and inept. The ambassador said he wanted to put an end to speculation, adding the leak had made it, quote, impossible for him to do his job. And France has denied breaching a UN arms embargo after 4 of its anti-tank missiles were found on a base loyal to a rogue Libyan general. The country's defense ministry says the, quote, unusable U.S.-made Javelin missiles were never intended to be passed to any group and were due to be destroyed. Those are your headlines. I'm Kersley Fuller.
Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands.
What's happening in your community? News and information, music and more. You can find us. www.radiocayman.gov.ky. Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. Radio Cayman is your choice, your voice for today's biggest news. Radio Cayman.
For the record, with Orrett Connor.
Initiating system.
For information that matters. For the record, with Orrett Connor. Continues right now on Radio Cayman.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. No guests in the studio, but I'm expecting to have someone in the next few minutes in. We're going to be joined by the Honorable Mayor Lawrence, former Speaker of the Legislative Assembly. She's going to join me here in the studio. We're going to continue our discussions in relation to constitutions and everything else. What else can I share with you? So we were talking about that situation in relation to the editorial. It wasn't me, or don't blame it on me, and it's not my fault. I think we're seeing less and less of that today in our current politicians, and we know the areas that the governor has reserved powers under the Constitution that are assigned to the governor and his reserved powers. We know that there are some that he can delegate to elected members of the Legislative Assembly. For instance, there was always this thought that immigration and the prisons should always fall under the governor in terms of internal security, internal affairs. We saw that change. A lot has to depend on what legislators are prepared to ask for, as well as what the UK government is prepared to give in terms of responsibility. We know that when it comes to the budgeting for the Royal Cayman Islands Police Service, the financial end of things handled by an elected member of Executive Council, but as far as the day-to-day operations and other issues, that is not under the purview of an elected member of our Legislative Assembly. Questions in relation to the Attorney General, for instance. In the constitutional negotiations, there were issues that were raised in relation to the Attorney General as well as the Deputy Governor, and not as individuals, but the positions, their ability to sit and to vote in Cabinet, to sit and to vote in the Legislative Assembly. It all boiled down to the point where they do sit both in Cabinet and in the Legislative Assembly, but they do not vote there as well. That is one issue. That is one issue that I believe that still needs to be ironed out. We do not believe, based on the list that was presented to us publicly in terms of the negotiations, the current negotiations with the United Kingdom government as it relates to amendments to our Constitution, that is not one of those issues that is being discussed. That's not one of the issues that is on the list as well. I think I shared with you before the whole question of the Attorney General and who he represents, who he gives advice to. And I shared with you Ian Henry, the chief negotiator for the United Kingdom in our constitutional negotiations, his strong words that he gave in relation to the role of the Attorney General, and pointing out that he does not advise the governor in cabinet, but not the governor in his capacity as the UK's representative as well. I'm going to interrupt my diatribe and say good morning and welcome to the Honourable Mary Lawrence, former Speaker of the Legislative Assembly. Madam Speaker, good morning. Glad that you could make it in despite the traffic on the roads. And we talk about less traffic on the roads in the morning because of school, but it seems as if there's a particular hour when there's still that build-up there.
Good morning, sir, and good morning to the Cayman public. I think some of it this morning is due to the fact that the police are out doing their duty. It look like they're checking cars on the road, which kind of slows up stuff. I want to take a couple of seconds to say thank you to the Cabinet Secretary who came to visit our exhibition yesterday evening in the pouring rain. I must congratulate him and the two members of his office who showed up and spent a considerable time. They did not get to view the second house. They just had a chance to view the first one because the rain prevented them from going out and crossing over. But I want to bring up something this morning that bothers me. We are now in the process of, again, revising our education system and bringing in new studies and new books and new everything else, apparently. And we are also at the beginning of a year celebrating our Constitution. And I am appalled at the lack of information that is available to the public on the Constitution. I'm not talking about the 2009 Constitution. There was a whole plethora of printed material that was put out on that particular document. But it did not include the background of how we got where we are. And I have to ask the question now, if we're going to go forward with a year of celebration of the Constitution, are we going to include Caymanian history in the new curriculum that you're devising for the schools in this country? Because if we're not teaching it to our people, we're lost. We've already lost too much time in doing this. We are at the point where we have 140 nationalities in this country who know who they are, who know where they come from, whose heritage and whose belongerness is, if that's a correct word, is secure in their own country from which they came. And they never refer to themselves as Caymanians. They're always refer to their homeland as their home. And little by little, our own self-worth, our own image as Caymanians is being eroded. And I just wonder, when are we going to take up the fight and go to the schools? And who's going to teach it? And what are they going to teach it from? We have reached a point now, spending all this money to revise a curriculum again, which we do almost every 4 years when we have a new directorate. But I have to ask myself, this is the Constitution, the year of the Constitution. Who is going to teach it in the schools, and from what are they going to teach it? Where is the information going to come? I find myself, when I think back to my growing up years here, knowing more about Cayman history than this generation does today. We always knew what was going on. It was passed down by word of mouth, that is true, but we knew. And now we're, like I said, we're faced. We never had an identity problem, which we have today. We have a serious identity problem today.
Very serious one.
You know, I listen to the ads, And we have people trying to fake a Cayman accent, or Caymanians trying to fake another accent, which is just as bad or worse. And it's like we don't believe in who we are. I never had any doubt who I was when I was growing up. We welcomed people here. We had people come here. Caymanians traveled probably more than any other nation in the Caribbean. They went all over the world. They brought back what they learned there. They improved themselves while they were gone, and they came back here, people who had just a basic education, captains and engineers on the ships that they sailed on. And we were proud. We were very proud of who we were as Caymanians. And now I find that we don't know who we are. We'll say, and I've heard it on this show and I've heard it elsewhere, we had to protect Caymanian culture and Caymanian heritage. But we don't know what it is.
What it is.
How do we protect it if we don't know what it is? Yeah. And if we're not teaching it to our children, how do we know what it is?
Okay. We have one caller when after we take this call and we take the commercial break. When we come back, I'm not sure how familiar you are with the curriculum and with the type of external examinations that our students are required to take, and whether or not those examinations and to be able to move on to higher education, whether it allows for local history and stuff like that to be assessed and to be a part of that curriculum as well. It should, but I'm not sure. Let's take the caller. First caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Fine, thank you. I'm all for, teaching Cayman history, but I just kind of wondered how much of it is in the written format where, it's accessible to people who probably don't know it, that they can read up on it and study it, or even the students. So I'm just wondering how much of Cayman history is in a written format or in some other format where people can access it. That's my question.
And the accuracy of it as well. Madam Speaker?
Yeah.
There is a wealth of information out there. For people who really want to find out about it, to teach it, they can go to the archives. The archives are filled with information for anyone who wants to research it and find out whatever the curriculum they devise says. They can go there and they can research it. The government can also make an effort to have some of it printed so that they can have it in their hands. I find that as a poor excuse, because any subject that you're going to teach in school, you have to research it. In this day and age, you have to do the research to bring yourself up to date and to be able to teach it to your class. And, is it a part of our curriculum? And should it be a part of our curriculum? And is this new curriculum going to allow for it? That's not a question. That should not even be a question. In the United States, government is a required subject. You take it before you get that high school certificate.
Civics, yeah.
And I don't understand why, even if we are not taking an exam on it, it is not taught as a class in school. It is compulsory. How long does it take to do it? An hour or two every week? There's no excuse for not teaching children who we are. That's my opinion on the matter. Okay. And I find that when it comes to whether we include it in the primary schools or whether we include it in the high schools, it begins the first day you enter school. My little great-granddaughter, the first thing she learned when she entered pre-kindergarten, the very first day, was the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States and the country for which it stands. Here, that's emphasis right at the beginning. Nobody had to look that up in a textbook because everybody knew it. And here we have adults who can't sing the Cayman national song, and they don't stand to attention when it's sung either. So I find myself in a position where if we're going to celebrate the Constitution this year, we have to make a desperate effort to ensure that certain things are put in place and that certain things are carried out so that the public can participate fully in this celebration.
Okay, time for us to take a commercial break. Folks, please stay tuned. When we return, the conversation with the Honorable Mary Lawrence will continue. Please stay tuned.
At Seaboard Marine, customers often ask us questions about their shipments.
I have various items coming from different suppliers that I need to ship to Cayman. Do you offer consolidation?
Yes, Seaboard Marine offers consolidation for full and less than container loads. We can hold your packages at our Miami warehouse until everything arrives and ship it all in one go. And we have the best rates to Grand Cayman. Visit seaboardmarine.com for more information.
Shipping shore to shore.
Since March 2004, West Bay Pharmacy has kept their doors open to the local communities, even before, during, and after Hurricane Ivan. At West Bay Pharmacy, our staff provides so much more than pharmaceutical excellence. From the moment you walk through our doors to completing your cash out, our staff will have put your healthcare concerns at ease. We would like to take this moment to thank our loyal friends and customers. To us at West Bay Pharmacy, our patients are our primary concern. We provide thorough background checks and precise calculations to ensure your medical safety. Thank you for being a part of our family and for choosing West Bay Pharmacy, where we care about your health.
Sometimes things just don't go as planned. That's why you need Contractors All-Risk Insurance from Fidelity Insurance Brokers. Ensure you're covered in the event of property damage and third-party injury or damage claims during your construction projects. And with Fidelity Insurance Brokers, you can be sure you are getting competitive pricing and superior customer service. Call us today for a free quote. Fidelity, we're good for you.
Headlines.
With the latest headlines.
All
the news when you want it. Tune in to Radio Cayman for hourly headlines of the day's top stories.
One of Cayman's bright and shining young stars.
Local, regional, international.
Turning to international news.
Updates on the hour between 7 a.m. and 6 p.m. on weekdays. Radio Cayman News.
Headlines.
Your voice, your choice for today's biggest news.
For the record with Orrett Connor.
Initiating system.
For information that matters. For the record with Orrett Connor. Continues right now on Radio Cayman.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. I have been graced with the presence of Madam Speaker, the Honorable Mary Lawrence, in the studio with me. And I'm going to turn the mic over to her because she never comes unprepared. But I want you to talk a little bit more about the houses and the artifacts and everything that is there so that people can understand exactly where it is. Because more and more interest is being generated in that area. And I know that there's some confusion between what you're doing and the Mission House as well, and some of the items that are resident in your particular houses.
Well, we're on the same street, basically. The Mission House is at the end of the road, and we're on the right-hand side before you get to the end of the road. We started this program in 2002. I started it when I was working with Dr. Frank McFeel. And we started it originally as a senior citizen center, and it evolved because of the senior citizens and the interest in the history of the country. It evolved into a heritage house, a heritage home, where all the artifacts in it, and there are literally thousands of artifacts in those two buildings that showcase Caymanian history. The building, the Nurse Joseph Senior Center, the first one, the pictures there mainly relate to the history. The one in the Heritage House are the faces of the families, where we go to the homes, we collect a photograph, we get a copy of it, and we frame it so that the great-grands and grands and of the generations in Boddentown are on the wall when school children come to visit, and they can see, yes, we were part of this. We have collected, we have been given, people are come forward, they come to visit, and they say, oh, I have this, and nobody wants it. Would you like to have it? And, of course, we do, and we secure it. So we have everything in there. We have a bed and a wardrobe, as we call them, and a mirror that came through the 1932 hurricane in Cayman Brac. And 5 generations later was donated to the Boddentown Heritage Center.
Okay, wow.
And it actually survived the hurricane. And the original owners, the father and the oldest son, were lost at sea in that hurricane, and the mother was left to raise all the children on her own, the little ones on her own. Everything there has a story. Everything, every item that comes to us comes with a story. And we try to share those stories as people come to visit. We showcase all we have showcases. In one we have, like, for example, all the different toys we played with over the years. In another one, we have all the different kinds of material we use for sewing, for craft work. The building itself, all of the craft work in there is done by the members of the committee or by seniors in the community. So we have everything from huge, beautiful bouquets of paper roses to the most beautiful rugs you can imagine. And but what is most interesting about that building is that it showcases construction in Cayman. The building was the original building, which was Wattle and Daub, was built in the late 1800s for William Webster. And there's a lot of talk about the Webster family and their role here. William Webster was the son of John Webster, and he was married to Katie Eden. His second wife was from Savannah, from what the area they call John Coyne. And they built this home in Gun Square, as we called it. And then they didn't have any children. When they died, it was sold to the Stewart family. And they didn't have any children. And Mr. Stewart, his mother bought the house for him out of money that he sent home. And he was in the United States, and he stayed there until he retired. And when he came home, his sister had been living in the house. He allowed her to build a little cottage in the corner of the property. And that little cottage is what we have expanded now into the Heritage House. Mr. Osborne Bodden helped us with that expansion and that securing of the area. And the house there, when you go into the house, you enter the porch, what was the porch area, which is now enclosed. And the tile on the floor there came from Rex Crichton's tile factory back in the 60s.
Like all those terrazzo tiles?
The cement tile, yes. As we called them then. And that's out of concrete block. But when you walk through the main house, and it's the hall area and 2 bedrooms on either side, we have converted one into the formal dining room. But when you walk through to what they call the throw-off, the piece they always added on to the back for more space, that's out of poured concrete. And I don't know if you remember how that was done. They would build the batter boards, and they would mix the concrete, and they would stuff it with, they didn't put any steel in it, with beach rocks, and the flat beach rocks. And you can't get a drill into that thing. That's so hard, right? That's solid. And then the last addition is out of wood. We have in it the iron bedstead, as we call it, the iron bed, with the plant and trash mattress and pillows, which we made. You strip the plant and trash off the stem, and you fill the mattress there. You make a ticking, a bag out of ticking, as he called it, and you created a bed and you created the pillows with that. We have pictures that go back all over from the community, particularly from the Boddentown community. And we have added, we stripped one of the rooms down so you can see the Wattle and Daub wall and how it was done. And we have in it, like, for example, we have Mr. Clarence Thompson's, you know who I mean, from Georgetown. We have the crib his dad made for him when he was born.
Wow.
We have a cradle that came from the Thompson family, also handmade on Walker's Road. It's just, we have 2 trees on that compound that are over 100 years old, an aceberry tree and a guinnep tree. We have the kitchen, the out kitchen that we built ourselves. We built it out of the lumber that we salvaged from Mr. Hunter's house when they were bulldozing that to make the public beach. And that lumber originally came from the wreck of the Balboa.
Okay. We have one caller. I'm going to try to grab the caller. Sorry to interrupt. Oh, caller's gone, so we can continue. Sorry. We can continue.
We can.
Have another 5 minutes before we break.
In that little out kitchen, as we call it, we have the iron pots. We have a sand floor. We even have an old wringer washer set up in there that was given to us as well. And then when you go across to the other house, we have the four-poster. We have a room of sewing machines, literally a room filled with sewing machines from different families that have donated them. We have a wide selection of old typewriters, telephones, all kinds of artifacts that relate to Cayman history and to Boddentown history in particular. Boddentown, despite what everybody talks about, is the only town, the only district, and the only town that carries the name of the Founding Fathers. The other areas in Cayman developed in Georgetown got its name from King George, as I understand it, and Northside, East End, and West Bay sort of developed their names from the direction in which they were located on the island. But Boddentown carries the name of the Founding Father, and the district carries the name of the Founding Fathers. We are the only. We are very proud of the fact that everything originated in our district. We call it the cradle of the nation. The Legislative Assembly started there. The courts started there. The education started there. The churches started there. Everything started in Boddentown and spread to the other districts. And so we have a very rich history in that town, and in the town and in the district itself. And people just need to come and see it. They need to come and know about it. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. We have it. What I find surprising is the private schools that come to visit,
as opposed to the public.
As opposed to the public schools, they will come and they will bring their children by the busloads. And they will bring their little notebooks and they will take notes and they will walk around and they will view everything. And the whole committee. It's a volunteer situation. All of our members are seniors and they're all volunteers. So rather than sit down up there all day waiting for somebody to show up, we say, call us and we will show you. And, we have people who come there from abroad who make a point of coming to visit the center from abroad while our own people don't show up. So if we're going to teach Cayman history, we need to be sure that our children can see it and feel it and touch it, and they can do that in that center. They can come there, they can pick up the coconut husk that you polish the floor with. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. You can pick up the old wooden measuring tape. They didn't have the plastic ones you pull out. You had the
folded one.
The fold-up ones. That's there. We have all kinds of tools that have been donated to the site, to the center. We have a special area that we call the Marine Park, where we feature the creation concocted by the women to show the wreck of the 10 sails. They created the ships and the reef, and they also put their little sails and everything on it, and it's a very interesting feature. Mm-hmm. And we have the seamen also featured in that room, their certificates and their photographs.
Okay, we have one caller now. Let's grab the caller. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Yes, good morning, O.C. How are you?
Good morning. I'm fine. How are you doing?
Not too bad. Good morning to your guest, Miss Mary Lawrence.
Good morning, sir.
Yes, Miss Lawrence, I have a question for you.
Yes.
In this little room in the back of the house that they used to do a lot of cooking, what section or what, can you explain what this, I always hear older people talk about a cook room. I'll just hang up and then you can tell me, okay?
Let's make sure that she got your question, caller.
I want to find out the significance of the cook room.
Okay.
Cook room. Okay.
All right.
Thank you, caller, for that. Thank you.
The cook room is that is called that area of the house was always detached. The reason it was detached was that the people did not like the food smells in their house, and since they were cooking on a fireplace, you also had the smoke to contend with. Mm-hmm, so it was always separated from the house.
And there was usually a walkway between the two.
Yes, for people who could afford it, there was a walkway between the two, and in fact, it could be big enough for you to put your hammock in and sit down and rock or whatever, do your craft work in the afternoons, but. And there's also the people who call it the fire hearth, the that we have in there to cook on, the fireplace, as they call it. Some people call it the
and
fireplace.
And the caboose was what?
And they call it the caboose. They call that the caboose too. But if you come to Bodden Town, you will see it complete with the iron pot, with the coals on top for baking the cassava cake. We have, and when we go to schools, we take miniatures of these things to demonstrate to children what they look like and the uses for them.
Okay.
You need to come to Bodden Town. I say that to everybody. It's very difficult to describe. That property is 3.5 acres. It has a fenced playground for children, and it has 92 parking spaces across the pond. Thanks to Osborne Bodden when he was minister.
Okay, time for us to take a commercial break. Folks, please stay tuned. The conversation with Miss Mary Lawrence will continue after this short commercial break.
At Seaboard Marine, customers often ask us questions about their shipments.
Hi, I'm thinking of buying a car from the States. Which port do you ship out of?
Hi, we ship out of Miami, Houston, and Brooklyn. Just let us know your port of choice and we can provide you with a quotation and answer any questions you may have on insuring and protecting your vehicle during its journey.
Shipping shore to shore, Seaboard.
The management of Hell Service Station Limited would like to take this opportunity to notify their customers that due to unforeseen circumstances, they will be reopening on Thursday, July 11th at 6 a.m. Management sincerely apologizes for this delay and appreciates your understanding in this matter.
Money Sense, bringing an informed financial perspective to the Cayman community. Brought to you by the CFA Society Cayman Islands and sponsored by One TradeX. Stock markets in the world's largest economy are at all-time highs, signifying the future is bright. But global bond markets are also at all-time highs, signifying profound concern. Join us this Thursday, 7:30 a.m. on Money Sense as we review these conflicting economic signals. Follow us on Twitter and tweet questions to @MoneySense Radio. Money Sense, the only personal finance radio show in the Cayman Islands, brought to you with the support of One TradeX. The Breeze Fusion is back Saturday, November 2nd.
Bigger and better.
Now featuring a 5K walk run and a 10K run for half marathon trainers. Join the fun and help raise funds for the Central Scranton Park and the NCVO. Save the date or register now at CaymanActive.com or at Radio Cayman Studios. Registration is only $15 if registered by September 30th. And all early registrants enter to win a Cayman Airways voucher. The Breeze Fusion 5K, 10K walk run. Saturday, November 2nd.
For the record, with Orrett Connor.
Initiating system.
For information that matter. For the record, with Orrett Connor. Continues right now on Radio Cayman.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. In the studio with me, I have the Honorable Mary Lawrence, and we're discussing the Heritage House in Bodden Town. I have a question for Miss Lawrence. Oh, we have a caller too? We have a caller, sorry. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning, Mr. O.C., and good morning, Mrs. Lawrence.
Good morning.
I'm so happy to hear this discussion this morning. And I just wanted to make a comment and ask a question. I'm in complete agreement that we need to get the Cayman history into the schools. The primary schools seem to be doing a fair amount of it, but it seems to fall off later on in the high schools. Now, Mr. Connor, you mentioned earlier about the external examination.
Yes.
External examinations don't really apply to the primary schools. I'm assuming that the external examinations in the primary schools are largely going to be looking at skills rather than content.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think there should be any reason why we can't build the Caymanian heritage into the primary schools, which is where we really, really need to get it.
Yes.
I think, though, that while we are educating our children, we need to consider what's happening in our broader culture. We love to talk about, our diversity, and believe you me, I'm one of those proponents of diversity,
I really appreciate all the richness that it brings into our community. But our community is still very, very segmented. We're not blended. You know, Jamaica talks about out of many one people, and Chinese are eating curry and roti, and Indians are eating oxtail, blacks are eating sweet and sour. That's not happening in our community. Now, we have to. I put that in the context that we are a very, very young society, but we need to address now what is going on within our broader culture. Many of our local Caymanians are ashamed of where they're coming from. They're ashamed to say, I was once poor. And when I say it, I get some strange looks. But the truth of the matter is that in the current, how should I put it, standard of living here in Cayman, all of us were once poor. Because many of us, while we may have had, we were property rich, we were cash poor. And even for those of us who had cash, a lot of things weren't available for purchase. So I remember growing up in my little community, we were all living pretty much at the same standard. Quality of housing was probably the greatest separator, the greatest, how should I put, difference, but it didn't separate us. We moved freely back and forth between each other's homes as children. We shared whatever my neighbor had on the table. I remember killing my mummy to go to one of my neighbors who made porridge every evening. I was sharing that experience with a Canadian lady the other day, and she said they ate porridge in the evening, but her mother told them that they must never ever let anybody know that they were eating porridge. We have to get into our broader community and get our own people to acknowledge where we're coming from. We don't know where we're going unless we know. You can't set direction towards any point if you don't know where the starting point was.
So true.
And somewhere along the line, we need to get out there and try to grow that pride in our past, that pride in our history, that pride in the hard work that has brought us to where we are. Now, my question is how, and really, it may be a rhetorical question. I really don't know how we could move this forward, but I would ask Mrs. Lawrence to comment on her experience of that, her perception of that, and how could she see us moving beyond this? I call it the some sort of shame.
Well, I grew up in, and I have said this repeatedly publicly, and I make no apology for it. When I grew up in Bodentown, we had three kinds of people: the poor, and the poorest. And we all managed to get to live together because to survive, we had to share everything we had. And it was one of the reasons why we, even the disciplining of children and everything, was shared among the families in the community. How do we move this forward is a question that I think we should face in this year that is in front of us. I found that so many of our children don't even have common knowledge, and we talk about the primary schools, well, that's there too. They don't even have common knowledge of the government members, who they are, what they do. The government members do not visit the schools like they should. Here's just a few years ago, short years ago, in fact, I was at a school and I asked the question, who's the Minister for Education? And there was a deep silence in the room, 250 children in it. And finally, one little boy put up his hand, and I said, "Could you tell us who's the Minister for Education?" And he said, "Yes, ma'am, Mr. Roy Bodden." And I said, "Where did you get that from?" He says, "My mommy says Mr. Roy Bodden is the Minister for Education." Well, Mr. Roy Bodden was the Minister for Education when his mommy was in school. And then that, but we don't share information with children. We assume that they know. We have a bad habit of assuming that children know certain things. I mean, our dining room table was a discussion forum every evening with our children, and they knew everything that was going on politically and whatever development was taking place in the country. But we don't do that anymore. We don't share information with our children, and so it almost falls to the government to make sure this information gets into schools. But when we talk about material, one of the people who contributed tremendously to that collection of material was Heather McLaughlin when she worked at the archives. And I was surprised that in schools that I worked in, there were stacks of little booklets that she had printed about various things and various areas of the heritage, the community. And nobody was using them. It was as though that nobody wanted to be bothered. Nobody wanted to share that kind of knowledge. And when I worked at Heritage High, I started working. They asked me, in fact, to share about the courts. And the children were fascinated about the way the courts work and how the law applied to them. We accuse a lot of times say children are bad, but sometimes it's because they don't know where the line is. And so you tell them, if you take your mommy's car, your mommy is going to get penalized for it. She's going to lose her driver's license for letting you drive her car when you were not of age to drive it. And you get this information across to children in various ways. You don't need to have a big curriculum that spells out every single word. But if a teacher is interested in teaching it, and here again, you can bring in people from the community to help get those messages across to young people. And I just feel that we have failed in that respect. We have thoroughly failed. And I want to go ahead.
I want to thank the caller for that question, and I trust that she has answered it. Just to add to that question, Miss Mary, our focus, we've always seen to a certain extent the neglect of education. Is it because our focus is more on other things, economic activity, development in the Cayman Islands, but not developing, not placing enough emphasis on the development of the minds of our children and our adults, as to our existence?
Well, in the early years of our development, and I'd say this is up until into the 50s, the education was not an emphasis for government. They left it to the churches. It was the churches who built the classrooms that government would use. It was the churches who brought in people from abroad to teach. It was the churches who, and a lot of them, they charge a little fee, which meant that education was denied to a lot of people in the community as well. Although we had compulsory education from 1920, it was never really enforced. Government didn't want to spend money on it. They would tax the little taxes that they had on your cows and on your head tax and all the rest of it. They would tax to fix something in government, or to build a building, or to build a road or something like this. But they didn't see any value in taxing to put education in place. And so government was extremely slow in putting secondary education into this country. It was not until 1972 when Mr. Benson took over that he started he took over the high school from the church and moved it to Walker's Road. But even then, there was a separation between the two between that and only a certain number of children could go to the high school. And it took he brought in the comprehensive education then, but previous to that they had the secondary modern down on Eastern Avenue, and 50 children, there were 50 places in the high school, and 100% of it, 25 of it got 100% scholarship. The other 20 got half scholarships and 10 got places. But you didn't have the money to pay, so you didn't get to go anyway.
Yeah, I saw the list in one of the old Trade Winds newspaper of people who had passed exams and those that got scholarships and stuff like that. Have to take a commercial break, and I believe we have one caller on hold. So as soon as we return from the commercial break, we will take that caller as well. Please stay tuned for the record. We'll be back shortly.
Wow, it seems I buy a battery every year.
Oh, for real? You should buy your car battery from Vantman. Their batteries are tough. I have a 3-year warranty on mine.
Oh, I know that trick. I take it back and they charge me a percentage of the price.
Hear me out, bro. Not at Vant Bobo. You can get a 3-year full warranty, no charge. And if they install it at Vant, it includes free towing and jumping service. And let me tell you, you will never have to get your hands dirty changing no battery.
Get Motorcraft Max or Plus battery for 20% off when it's installed by the service department at Vamp Motors on Walker's Road. Now that's a deal you can get charged up about. Vamp Motors, keeping you on the road.
Congratulations, it's a boy.
During the greatest events of your life, whether or not you have the right health insurance coverage should be the last thing on your mind. That's why at Fidelity Health, we are committed to helping you get matched with the right plan to suit you and your family. We offer a range of plans to suit your budget, plus access to a network of quality care throughout the Caribbean and the USA. You can relax and enjoy life's greatest moments when you are covered with Fidelity Health. Call us today at 949-7822 for a free quote.
Excuse me, I noticed you from afar.
Really? Me?
Well, not you. The KFC sandwich you're eating?
Oh, Zinger.
Sorry, I'm not trying to be funny.
No, it's called the Zinger Sandwich. Crunchy, juicy, 100% chicken breast, crisp lettuce, sweet mayo on a seeded bun with a little zing. KFC's chicken is not factory breaded, frozen and refried like the Burger Boys. Customize your KFC Zinger and dip it in barbecue sauce.
Wow, now I'm starting to notice you too.
KFC, it's finger licking good.
Remember to discard all fresh fruits and vegetables, meats, all foods in canisters, dented, leaking or rusting cans after they have come in contact with floodwater. Also discard foods that are stored in cardboard boxes, paper foil, cellophane, and cloth, as well as those in open containers and packages. For more post-hurricane food safety tips, visit DEH website at deh.gov.ky.
For the record, with Orrett Connor.
Initiating system.
For information that matter. For the record, with Orrett Connor. Continues right now on Radio Cayman.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. We have a short time left, maybe about 12 minutes to go this morning. We have a caller. Let's go to the phone lines. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Mr. For the Record.
Good morning. Morning, Doc. How are you?
Not bad. How are you?
Fine.
And good morning to the Dr. Honorable Mayor Lawrence.
Good morning, sir.
I think what you have said is better than anything that I have written about the education in Cayman so far. I would just like to say that not only were people not able to pay the scholarship, or if they got the scholarship, they didn't have the money to go there. But there were a lot of people, especially in the Georgetown area, who, for instance, wrote the Cambridge exams, and only to find out they didn't get any results, haven't passed. It was later on, 10, 15, 20 years later, that those people realized that their exam paper had never been sent abroad to mark, and they never got any results. That is what was happening at that particular time.
Uh-huh.
Now, just let me give you a little example, a couple of minutes about what happened in Canada. In the 1960s, late 1960s, a couple wrote a book called Silent Surrender and another book called The American Impact on Canada. Because the people who were in charge of the economy of Canada was only interested in exporting the resource, the timber, the mining, resources, and when they wake up one morning, 98% of Canada was owned by the United States. Even their education system, their television system, their radio system, all the content from those systems was American. And Mr. Trudeau came into power, and he took resources from Canada, from the government, and he reworked that by commissioning all of the people, the writers in Canada, to write books about the history of Canada. As a result, we had books like The Last Spike, The Klondike, From Sea to Sea, From Pacific to the Atlantic, and all the things like that. And those history books about the Canadian development and the Canadian history were compulsory. They were not elective. You could not graduate from college or university until you took those courses. We have no such compulsion here, because all we're interested in building story buildings and seeing how much money we can take out of the economy and bragging about how much money we have. What has happened to us is that we have so many different people who say they're Caymanians, but they're only, for instance, another country living in Cayman. And the problem with Miss Mary, as you have said, if we do not arrest that today, Miss Mary, in the next generation, and that was only next 30-something years, you will have to go to the museum and the archives to see what Caymanians look like and how they live. I'm afraid, Miss Mary, that the government does not care about the knowledge of where people coming from, how they go. I'm surprised that I have been to so many different countries, and I've gone there just to observe the history, to see that Borden Town, which is the capital, has no semblance of a capital at all. It's in every other town, especially the capital city, the capital where civilization and where education and the politics began. That is something that everybody visits, even school children, tourists. Everybody visits.
You're right.
And people are proud to show that off. Here they don't even care about it. So I don't know what we are going to do, Miss Mary, but probably it's going to be. Some of us is going to have to sit down and start doing some writing, and you probably going to have to get back to your old days when you were writing for the Northwest stuff and starting out writing history and so forth, and start publishing it yourself. Thank you. Thank
you very much, Doc. Ms. Mary, we have about 5-7 minutes left, so I want to give you the mic for those the short period of time that we have left.
Well, one of the things we forget, of course, is that we're such a very young country, too. And when we were developing, we concentrated on getting the economic pillars established without any regard for the fact that when we established them, we didn't have the people that we needed in place, our own people in place to run them. I want to read a quotation. It's from the address of His Honor, Mr. A.M. Gerard.
Yes.
At a meeting of the Legislative Assembly in the Georgetown Town Hall on March the 16th, 1955, I think it was. Yes. The meeting was held to discuss the estimates for the year. And this is reading from the Gospel of the Trumpet, which was a little newspaper that the Church of God Gospel Hall on the waterfront, Mr. Will Bennett.
Printed. Okay,
yes.
Wow.
The three members, Messrs. Logan Bodden, Lee Banks, and Rael Bodden, one from Boddentown, one from Westbend, one from Georgetown, Justices of the Peace, were nominated for the Liquor Licensing Board, according to the new liquor law passed in the last vestry. A motion to defeat the opening of clubs with liquor licenses on Sunday was defeated 15-12, a bad omen for an island that is fast becoming a tourist resort with all sort of ungodly disregard for the Lord's Day. The salaries of civil servants were increased somewhat and other matters were dealt with. But this is the interesting part. The address of His Honor, Mr. A.M. Gerard, dealt with some outstanding points of interest. He deplored the self-interest of members and said, quote, I should like to see members have a change of heart. I should like to see them pay less attention to the trivialities of daily life, which engender so much heat and even hatred, and to concern themselves more with the vital question, where is the dependence going? And he answers it, we are going somewhere very fast, but nobody seems to know precisely where we are going. End of quote. And I think we are pretty much in that position right now. One of the problems we have, despite all the word that are spoken and all the pretty books that we print is a lack of communication between the government and the people. That still exists after all of these years of development, where we don't have the government come out and discuss things with the people anymore. We don't have town hall meetings where they sit down and talk to people about what their plans are. A new education system is being put in place, but there has been no public meetings to say to the parents who are going to have to be the balance for this system. Well, we're going to change the system, and this is what is going to happen, and this is going to be the responsibility of the teachers. This is where you fit into it. These are going to be what the new textbooks look like. None of this has been done, and yet school begins next month. You know, we're not communicating with the people, and as a result, no. When we say that people are not interested, it's just not that they're not interested. They don't know what they're supposed to be interested in. Mm-hmm. We need to get busy and do this. And like I said, when it comes to the history of this country, it is pastime that it is taught in the schools. Pastime. I find that when I was growing up, when my children were growing up, they knew all about the 32 hurricane and how bad it was and who died and where they were buried and all the rest of it. And how bad all the plantations were wiped out and they're filled with salt. And here we had the hurricane of the century, the Ivan hurricane, and you ask a child about it, they don't know what you're talking about. They have no clue. And yes, so many books have been written about that too. The storybooks are there. The books of the stories of the people who survived that hurricane are there, but they're not placed where children can reach them, and they're not made a part of their reading material.
Okay. One of our listeners observed when you talk about the transition, they say I think you mentioned 1975, but they say they recall 1960. Around about 64, 65 in terms of the changeover.
The split in the schools came in the 60s because I was teaching at secondary modern. And when Benson became the minister, he started a comprehensive system which combined the two schools, the secondary modern and the Cayman High School, which they had started, and made education available for everyone at that point in time.
If you had a wish list for your venture, the Heritage House and everything else, what would it be? What would you like to see to do next with it? What's the next level you would like to see it go?
I would like to see it become a part of the school's curriculum, where the school done classes from the school made day trips there, and they got a lesson firsthand from the seniors in my community who are well versed in the history of this country. I would like to see government pay more attention to it. In fact, I would like to see government come and take a look at it, because so many government members have never been. We have not. I guess because we've gone ahead and done things on our own without dipping our hands into the coffers on a regular basis. They have sort of left us to do it like that. But it also means that it is not, we're not on the tourism's brochures. We're not on their website. We're not featured anywhere in government. The only time we're featured in anything is if we can beg a couple of spaces in a newspaper for an ad, or if we come on one of the talk shows and we talk a little bit about it. But it has to be more than that. If we are going to preserve our history, one of the things, and this was said on your show, the lady who was in charge of the museum said they had, I think it was 9,500 artifacts in storage. In storage? Really? Why aren't they out there where people can see them? Why have we, even if you had to put up a exhibition like we have done, periodical in the town hall Georgetown, to showcase what we have. It would be a point of interest for young people. It would be a point of interest for school children. It would be a point of interest for tourists coming here. We have more tourists visit the site in Bodden Town than we have local people. Because when they come here and they hear about it, they make a point of coming. Yes, one of our visitors came last night in the pouring rain. Wow. To see the site.
Okay. Ms. Mayor, I want to thank you for being here on short notice. I know that the Cabinet Secretary and not only him, but listening and viewing audience wants the dialogue to continue, the conversation to continue in relation to our Constitution, our constitutional history. And I'm going to try to work a schedule together so that we can continue the dialogue with you, with Mr. Roy Borden, with Dr. Steve Maxfield as well. But I want to thank you for coming on such short notice this morning, because you also expected that the dialogue would continue, today as well. But we will get that on track going. Folks, I want to thank you. We're past the hour of 10 o'clock, but I want to thank you for allowing Radio Cayman and by extension For the Record into your homes, into your places of work, whether it be an office cubicle or if you're working in the outdoors. I also want to remind you that we are brothers and our sisters keepers. There is always someone out there who's less fortunate than we are, and I ask you to extend a helping hand to them. If you can't do that, then I suggest you donate to a worthy charity, because we always want to consider those who need, not necessarily those who want or even those who crave. I say to you, have a great day. Continue to support your radio station, Radio Cayman. Join Sterling Dwayne Banks at 12:15 on Talk Today, where one of his guests will be the Supervisor of Elections, Mr. Wesley Howell, talking about the verification process for signatures on the port petition. As well, I say to you, do not forget your history. Do not deny your history. Do not deny where you're from or where you came from. Stay proud. It is a part of you. It will live with you forever. You need to own it. God bless.
Community radio with a different appeal. The voice of the people. Security through adversity. Stuck on you. Radio for all time.
You're listening to Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands.